consciousness. Like modern Wicca, alchemy saw the world as a male-female duality. Alchemical ideas about this duality are strikingly similar to Wiccan ideas about goddess and god. The masculine polarity was thought of as red and fixed, the feminine polarity as white and volatile. The union of these two produced the physical world. The great work, or alchemical marriage, was the quest to unite and transcend this duality. It is the great work, which is often mistakenly described as the quest to transmute base metals. The great work began with what is termed materia prima. This is the ordinary state of being, the lead in the analogy. The great work ended in the creation of the philosopher's stone. This is enlightenment, or the gold of the analogy. The materia prima was considered to have both a masculine and a feminine aspect, which were in opposition within it, until brought into alignment through the great work, hence the term alchemical marriage. The great work has three main parts: the nigredo, the albedo, and finally the rubedo. These correspond to the sacred colors of the Wiccan goddess: black, white, and red. In addition, a fourth stage, called the cauda pavonis, marked the transition between nigredo and albedo. Symbolically, the materia prima was placed into an athanor, or alchemical furnace, which subjected it to steady pressure and reduced it to its constituent parts. This residue was the nigredo, the destruction of preconceived forms considered necessary for new growth to occur. What this really means is that before one can grow spiritually, one must first eliminate old ideas and limitations. As the Zen Buddhists say, only an empty bowl can be filled. Alchemists described this principle through the maxim, "No generation without corruption," an idea similar to the Wiccan "to rise you must fall." New growth cannot take place until the old is cleared away. The nigredo then fermented until at length the cauda pavonis occurred. This was portrayed as a light show of many colors. This means that when we have purified ourselves of old ideas, we may then experience many new ideas, and indeed will at first run riot with them, learning all we can from all sources. During this period, we may in fact be bedazzled or blinded by the newfound light. But through the application of self-control, we can learn to discern what is helpful to our growth and what is merely entertaining. After the cauda pavonis, the subject must be purified, resulting in the albedo. The albedo is a pure and receptive spiritual state. This means that after initial euphoria, a more controlled spiritual growth may unfold, elevating and expanding the consciousness. Finally, after being subjected to pressure again, the albedo becomes activated as the rubedo. What this means is that spiritual knowledge, to be valuable, must be put into practice. No matter how deep the ideas, or how great the abilities, they mean nothing if they are, as Mabel Heikerel once put it, left on a shelf to gather dust. Thus old ideas must first be transcended. Then controlled spiritual growth can lead to spiritual enlightenment, which must be put into practice to be of value. This is, of course, an oversimplification, in that it is the opposite of the alchemist's own tendency, which was to overcomplication. Like the ceremonials, alchemists phrased their writings in intentionally obscure wording, ostensibly to shield their teachings from those they considered unworthy. It also served to shield themselves from persecution by religious fanatics. Alchemists used a rich symbology that included elemental, planetary, and mineral symbolism, as well as a good dose of ancient paganism. One of the principal themes of alchemical symbolism is the union of opposites, which is expressed in many ways throughout alchemical art. Such familiar figures as the four elements, the twin dragons, and the Ouroboros, the great serpent of the universe eating its own tail, were of great importance in alchemy. The masculine principle was likened to the sun and also to sulfur, while the feminine was considered lunar and likened to Mercury. The inner fire, what we today call the eternal flame or the divine spark, was described as a salt. It is this mineral symbolism above all which has led to the idea that alchemy was entirely concerned with protochemistry operations. True, alchemists did engage in such protochemistry operations in the belief that it would shed light on their spiritual operations under the credo, as above, so below, which is a principal pillar of alchemical thought, as of modern Wiccan thought. However, it was a dilettante alchemist who misunderstood the spiritual nature of the teachings and turned instead to chemical operations, not realizing that they were a code for higher knowledge.
And now we can see the big picture coming into focus. Could that spark of consciousness in us all be connected to spiritual enlightenment? And by intense focus on the development of consciousness, could alchemists truly reach these levels? Even modern science is beginning to tell us a great deal about our consciousness and its connection to the rest of the infinite universe. Our knowledge of the power of the human brain has seen great strides in recent years, and possible interactions with certain glands such as the pineal are continually being investigated with many successes. In his groundbreaking book detailing his research, Dr. Rick Strassman outlines his discoveries with the pineal gland and a substance known as dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, while administering the substance to a controlled group of volunteer patients. DMT is the most potent psychedelic known thus far, is highly illegal in nearly everywhere in the world, yet it appears to be produced naturally by our pineal gland during REM stages of sleep, deep meditation, and possibly during fetal development and near-death and death experiences. The patients also reported extremely intense spiritual experiences, many of which were frightened to a fear of death due to its intensity. Could this be the sacred and mysterious, divine nectar-like substance produced in the brain during the latter levels of spiritual enlightenment, as described by the alchemists? These questions have profound implications, as much of this knowledge has been occult or secret, found only in magical and hermetic societies. Millions of Hindus bathe where the sacred Ganges and Juma rivers meet. The scriptures tell how the divine nectar, which is said to confer immortality and everlasting bliss, was once spilled into the rivers during an epic fight between the demons and the gods. They believed that from their scriptured legends, they might be able to thereby speed their way to nirvana and be spared the pain of countless rebirths in man's universe. Amazingly, this appears to be a universal aspiration of the alchemist as well. Many say this substance occurs as the activation of the Ajna chakra, or third eye, takes place. This is where the sun and the moon, the masculine and feminine, right and left brain become balanced and synergistic. This makes sense scientifically, where the brainwave patterns of each hemisphere could create a magnetic field by this balance in the exact location of the pineal, located within the hypothalamus in the center of the brain. Within nearly every culture that has existed, there is a reference to the activation of the third eye, or Ajna chakra. This is no coincidence, but rather something that even science should be inclined to research due to its statistical probability alone. In actuality, there is quite a bit of substantiated evidence of this sacred science being all that it's described as, and more, when one has the keys to its meaning and applies it diligently to their life. Should alchemy continue to be unknown and hidden within the areas such as the Vatican and secret societies who wish to withhold it from mankind? Or should the knowledge and light be given to those that seek, as Prometheus did when he stole the fire from Zeus and gave it to mankind? This is the story of Eden, which tells us of a God that wants mankind to continue just tending to the garden, not to have a consciousness, not to have spirituality, not to be like Him. It is our destiny to re-enter Eden, and freely eat from the tree, and drink from the waters of life. As it is written, surely we will not die, but know that which God knows. By this we realize our true nature and divinity. We must understand that we are truly spiritual beings having a human experience, not humans trying to have a spiritual experience. It is a diligent alchemist who comes to understand the true nature of reality and become the master, the guru, the teacher in their physical, emotional, and spiritual growth, a master of their own destiny. So what happened to the spiritual aspects of alchemy when